Alright, like every big battle from anything, video games, movies, TV shows, anime, there's always the MVPs, the most valuable players. And normally one side usually has it. It doesn't matter whether the winner side has it or the losers. But in this case, I'd like to speak of two specific MVPs. One for the Royal Candidate side, and the other one being for the Witches Cult side, because they both actually had their own unique MVPs for different reasons. However, there are two honorable mentions I'd like to speak, one from each side, of course. Natsuki Subaru being the obvious honorable mention because, without Return by Death, quite literally, a lot of things would have gone wrong with the Sirius fight, and a lot of shenanigans wouldn't have happened to allow the protagonist to win. However, because he didn't use Return by Death as much, and it was only against Sirius, which they couldn't defeat because, she pulled a hostage right out of fucking thin air. It unfortunately makes him the honorable mention. However, we can't deny the fact that he was the key variable in beating Regulus, the strongest Sin Archbishop, which is an important factor to keep in mind. And we can also argue, I guess, tied with him would be Priscilla because of the fact that she managed to beat Sirius in one go and didn't seem like any danger was really towards her. But Subaru deserves for sure the honorable mention. Now, for the other side, it's going to be Roy Alphard. And for the only reason for that being that he quite literally dominated his entire fight. Like, out of every fight, his was so one-sided. It's not even a joke. And yes, you could argue Capellas as well, because, you can't really kill her so far. But Roy Alphard quite literally dominated the ever-living hell out of Julius and Ricardo. Which, it's unfortunate. Like, those two may not be, top tier in terms of Reinhardt levels, but they are definitely strong combatants. So, for Roy to just dominate the shit out of them is quite impressive. Now, for the actual MVPs of this arc, we're going to go with the obvious one that seems to even have won the fans over, Capella. Like, the Sin Archbishop of Lust is so unique in her being the most valuable player in terms of the Witches Cult side, because aside from being a Sin Archbishop, the fact that she was able to knock out a royal candidate, being Krush, out of the race temporarily with the Dragon Blood, screw over so many civilians because now they're all insects, and essentially completely screw over Subaru and Al in a mental note, though with Aldebrand it's a little different. Like, he could put up way more of a fight than Subaru, and yet no matter what happens to her, she just gets back up, continues to act like nothing happened, and is kind of just having fun with it, and knows everyone's faces. That means that she can transform into literally anyone and try to blend in, try to be the imposter, and that is a genuine problem for at least the real candidates. Not necessarily a problem for the Witches Cult, because that could prove useful for them. So clearly with that, as well as the fact that for whatever frickin' reason, all the fans for ReZero tend to simp for her, probably because she could transform into whatever the hell they want, or I guess they like the form that she takes, whichever is the case. So she unironically won over the fan base for the season. Similar to how Rem won over the fan base in Season 1, and then there was Echidna in Season 2. Obviously, Season 3, we had to add someone, so so there's that. But I like to talk about the Royal Candidate side. Who was the MVP? We discussed it that Subaru is more of an honorable mention since there wasn't a lot of Return by Death and there was so many things going on all over the place. But let me say, Aldebrand is the true MVP of all of this. Since we made it clear the Royal Candidates won this fight, Aldebrand was the key reason that the Witches Cult lost this fight. And there are 3 reasons why. The first reason is because, keep in mind, the Witches Cult wanted all of, or at least one of the 10 council members, and Kiritaka wasn't captured just yet, up until, Sirius came in, and he and his mercenaries held her off while they let Anastasia run away. But, interestingly enough, the Witches Cult noticed that 9 out of 10 of them, because Kiritaka's the last one, died. They were suddenly just killed, and that wasn't the Witches Cult's doing, because they wanted at least the members alive to interrogate them and try to get Typhon's remains. So, I mean, it's implied with Priscilla that Aldebaran had done it without outright saying it was him, but it was the right call as it prevents the witch's cult from actually being able to get the information they need, since without that, they are not able to actually flood the city, since, well, they still need at least one of the members alive, and they're using the whole flooding the city as more of a threat for the council members. For the second reason is being the one responsible for one of the water gates opening, since all of the Sin Archbishops were kind of dumbfounded that that happened. And yeah, it seemed like a bad thing because so many people got hit with that and possibly some people drowned. But here's the thing. Subaru's group were already, when they first attacked the Witch's Cult where Lust was, they were at such a disadvantage. That essentially helped them get out of the situation, since without that, it's possible that most of them would have gotten hurt. Krush could have been killed, or worse, turned into a possible bug. Who knows? But that entire event allowed them to escape Lust, and it sort of put all of the Sin Archbishops in even more turmoil, since no one knows which one did it, and it kind of pushes more that they distrust one another. So Aldebaran quite literally pushed all of them to kind of be distrusting per se. And then lastly of his accomplishments was taking on Capella one-on-one. Although there was a plan to trap her and beat her, the thing comes down to him possibly learning about Capella's little trick of transforming into others. And by that, I mean that obviously we saw Capella transform into Krush, which Felix saw, but it's more likely that she knew that Felix was Krush's knight and all this and that. And then the same thing with Subaru. But whenever Aldebaran questioned her, like, when the hell did you saw Priscilla? Because Capella transformed into Priscilla. She basically said to him, I didn't. I basically just went with whatever desires you want. And even though his face was, like, masked by his actual helmet, it basically shows that she knows instantly, like, her authority allows her to transform into whatever the person desires. And that's probably going to be important information, especially when the fact that he gave Subaru information about gluttony. Like telling him that not to reveal your actual name to Gluttony because that would be bad. Which really did help Subaru in the long run, especially because he confronted Roy Alphard along with Julius and Krush. And then lastly, Aldebaran was the person who was giving out informations and gaining information, such as the stuff with how Emilia learned a few things from Regulus, and Aldebaran, although he was like dealing with the whole water gate stuff, taking out a few witch cultists in the shadows, he got the information, and that essentially assisted Subaru in the planning on how to counterattack the witch's cult. So without Aldebaran, like, a lot of the information Subaru would have gotten would have been too late and the checkpoint could have been moved, or he would have had to die a couple more times before finally having some way of beating the witch's cult. So realistically, like, we did have the two MVPs fight each other, Al and Capella, but because the Royal Candidates won, we gotta give it to Al. Al is the MVP of Season 3. Like, the dude quite literally was the key reason why Subaru didn't have to die a lot, and everyone essentially had a chance at victory against the Sin Archbishops. So let's give a round of applause to Aldebaran, the jester of Priscilla, because quite literally he was the reason that everything sort of went smoothly.